Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Good morning.
First episode going live.
Or good afternoon. They don't know what time it is.
It's always morning.
Well, and time isn't real, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about, on this episode.
We're going there right off the bat. We'll get ready.
Just kidding, guys. We won't take you there right away, all right? We'll leave a little bit on there for later.
First.
Yeah. So yeah, guys, you're listening to the first episode of This One Time on Psychedelics, and this week we have been in Oregon. I have been in Oregon for the entire week, and we had an incredible New Year's. And I was chatting with my good friends, Benjoy Walker and Sean Lazio, and I was telling them about this show. And I was like, I'm so excited to start recording episodes. And it's great being around action-taking people, because Ben's like, well, when tomorrow do you want to record one? And I'm like, oh, shit, this is happening. So now it's happening. And I'm so excited to have you guys here. And really the structure for this, episode is going to be a great way to get introduced to what this show is going to be about. And what it's going to be about is the true first-hand accounts of what's taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicine, right? And so I thought a great place to start would be to start by introducing each of yourselves and talk about a little bit about how you got into psychedelics and whether or not you were always okay with them or whether or not that came later on. So I'll start with you, Ben.
Cool. So my name's Ben, and I'm relatively new, not relatively new, I'm about a year in to psychedelics, and was definitely strongly against them. Like, strongly against smoking weed, smoking anything, mushrooms, definitely against those. LSD, that's terrible. It's going to make holes in your brain, whatever. All the old wives' tales about psychedelics. And then I think it was the Aubrey Marcus podcast where I first started hearing actual accounts. I'd never heard actual accounts of people doing psychedelics. So that started to socialize me to the idea, and the way they were talking about it, it didn't sound anything like what I'd been told it was. And they were talking about it's not dangerous at all if you know what you're doing. So I was getting more and more curious about it, and eventually had the opportunity. I was living with a very good friend of mine, and he's a straight up shaman now, but he was just beginning to do we use are those the names that we can use on here?
We can use that name on here.
Danny Rios, he's the fucking man. So he facilitated my first mushroom journey, which was a little over a year ago. It was about November, beginning of November last year was when I had my first mushroom journey with him. And since then, it's been an interesting journey of pushing the edge just a little bit more, and then just a little bit more, and then I got pushed a little bit more and got slapped in the face a couple times. Definitely was a little cavalier at some points, and that's what happens. Is as soon as you think you got your shit together, the mushrooms are like, "Ha! You're not wrong."
When you think you know, you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. So the journey has been really expansive. What I enjoy is when I hear people talk about psychedelics, and they talk about having a challenging experience. And what they always say, and this has been 100% true for me, is every time I've had a challenging experience, it's been exactly what I needed. And there might have been a couple hours of discomfort to a rather high level of discomfort where I was just clinging on. I remember one journey in particular, I could feel the freak out coming of screaming and tearing my hair out. It was it was just bubbling under the surface. And I was like, ooh, breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe. I remember I just lay down on Sean's chest and was like, hey, man, having a rough time. I just lay there and breathe for like 20 minutes.
Yep.
But like for just as many like challenging ones that I've had, there have been incredible, beautiful ones, and like, you know, going like Disney World ride through the Garden of Eden and getting blasted off into Orion and having a chat with my guides who live up there. Like incredible stuff. And
Typical Thursday.
like at the same time, like the couple hours of discomfort of a challenging one is far outweighed by the expansive joy that's on the other side. Like every time I've had a challenging experience, there's been something fucking epic that happens right afterwards. So I'm doing it with much more caution and discernment now, definitely, than I was before. And I have no idea where it's going. And I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah. You know, I'm really glad you brought that up, you know, about how there's some challenging experiences and some blissed out ones. And a big reason why I wanted to start this podcast was so we could really put that out there, because I feel as though with psychedelics rising so much in popularity, there's a lot of people that are going to be wanting to go out and try these substances. And they're going to hear one of two camps. They're either going to hear they're amazing, they're never going to hurt you, everything's going to be, you know, sunshine and rainbows, perfect. Or they're going to hear the other side of like, they're the devil, your brain's going to get ruined, etc. Right? So being able to, you know, understand that those experiences are all exactly what you need when you need them. And then the importance of like set and setting, which we'll get into later, comes into play real hard. And that's why you'll hear anyone who's experienced with psychedelics talk so highly about set and setting, because it really matters, you know? And so I'm really glad you brought that up. And I think this is a great opportunity to have Sean chime in with how he got started in this journey and some of his experiences and, the great baseline that you're going to create.
Yeah. So similar to Benjoy, I grew up being opposed to all of it. You know, school was drilled into my head as being super important. I grew up playing sports, and you know, there was hopes of getting a scholarship to go to college to play baseball, for instance. And so for me growing up, it was stay away, right? And this came from my dad, who's experienced different substances, hasn't gone down the psychedelic route because he is terrified. And but like even with marijuana, it's like, no, stay away from it. And he enjoyed marijuana. But I know he had his best interest. So I grew up like that. And then it wasn't until like 2015 when I just got this feeling of like, okay, something's missing, something's wrong. Something just didn't feel right. Didn't know what it was. So it started leading me down the rabbit hole. And very similarly, I found Aubrey Marcus's podcast. And it was through a group of friends who happened to use cannabis. And it was just more for enjoyment and like sleep and stuff like that. And so I started smoking weed just a little bit here and there. Really did help me sleep. And then I got connected to someone who told me about DMT. And I just heard about DMT on the Aubrey Marcus podcast. And I was like, oh, man, this is one of those things. Like, I really want to try this. Like, I was pretty set on there's more to this world than what my current human experience is, right? Without being able to put that in words. And so I smoked DMT for the first time.
That was your entry?
That was my entry. It was DMT.
You went full Joe Rogan right off the bat.
So the interesting thing is, I didn't quite blast off. I got really close. My experience was I was sitting on the couch. I was super scared. And as I smoked it, I didn't really hold it in that much because I was just like, I don't know what to do. And then so I started to feel it, getting some visuals, and I started to feel as if I was falling back. And so it's like my entire landscape started to change. And as soon as I got about halfway up, like I felt myself falling and I pulled myself out of it. So then I just went on and had a little bit of visuals. And I was just like, I have no idea what the fuck just happened. Like that was fucking crazy. And then there was a part of me that was telling the story of like, you little bitch, you could have gone all the way. And so, yeah, it really like helped me question what my reality was at that point, because then I started looking it up and people are having similar experiences. I'm like, how can we all be smoking the same substance and having similar experiences, and then have people say like, oh, it's just in your imagination. Right. So I just kept going down the rabbit hole. And then I heard Mike Bledsoe on his podcast talk about a trip to Peru and how, life-changing that was, and talking about ayahuasca. And naturally started to unfold a little bit more, dive deeper, get connected with someone that invites me to an ayahuasca ceremony. And so that was December 2018. So that was when I really took a deep dive in. And I was by myself in a room with 50 other people that I didn't know and had a hell of a fucking experience that I didn't think I was going to come out of. It was terrifying. I did not have the tools to be with what was going on. And so that's something that I'll be happy to discuss later in this journey about, what that experience was. And then, so yeah, I have this experience, rocks my world. On the other side of that, like Benjoy mentioned, was like pure bliss. It was like I got the cosmic joke at the very end of it. Still don't know what that means. But in that moment, I was like, yeah, I totally get it. So that was Aya. And then a few months after that is actually the most profound thing that I've ever experienced, which was training camp for the soul. And so I got to be introduced to people who were doing the work that would allow people to have that foundation that now, since I have it, my medicine journeys since have been way different. Much more transformation and growth instead of getting my world rocked and then being left to be like, what the fuck just happened? So in 2018, training camp for the soul. And then I actually did an Aya ceremony 2 days after my TCS retreat. And so for anybody that's listening to this that knows what training camp for the soul is, you have a good idea of what went down. And it was actually my last night of TCS using cannabis. I had one of the most profound journeys. And it was just cannabis and music. I had a 24-hour experience.
Wow.
It was like the best thing and also terrifying.
Yeah.
And so that was my confirmation to keep going. And so that was 2018. The rest of that year, didn't really experience anything from a plant medicine standpoint. And then 2019 came around, I hit rock bottom and found mushrooms. And so I've been called to do mushrooms for a while, and I just couldn't get my hands on any. And finally got to the point where I imagined it was like the universe telling me, like, just wait. Like, there's still more work to do without this. And then so I did my first mushroom journey on my own. And it was a beautiful experience. And since I'd had the tools, I got to really connect with like the parts of me that were hurting and were sad and the painful parts, and seeing myself through a new lens, dealing with a breakup that weighed really heavy on my heart. Like I even tapped into what she felt, and I was able to be with it. And I remember at one point in time when I thought I couldn't take more, I just sat up and like opened my chest. I was like, I'm fucking strong enough. I can do this. Just give it all to me. Like I can feel this. And so that was my first mushroom experience, 3 grams. And it just fucking blasted me wide open. It's been ever since then that my life has truly changed. And that was, 2019. No, so it was 2020 actually when I did I just had my first mushroom experience last year, guys, like 6 months ago. People were like, what? I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah. So then it really opened me up. I got to experience some different medicines while at Vision Fest, and my first festival. So pairing music with the medicine there, it just completely, like, I started to understand people's stories about how plant medicines were changing their lives. And I really started to step into that, and also recognizing that, doing something like Training Camp for the Soul, and I imagine there's other programs out there doing similar work, how important it is to know what it means to integrate. Right? Because my experience and more people I talk to is there's a lot of people out there that are just blasting off with no intentions. And like you said, you have the camp that falls into they're the best, and you have the camp that falls into like they're fucking horrible. And then there's a lot of people in the middle that have no idea and are just going on the ride, which could be great, could also be horrible. So like really learning like the importance of integration and purposefully using the medicines and having that intention. And also understanding it's totally okay if your intention is just to have fun.
Yeah.
Like I've had some of the best fucking times when I was just like, you know what, I'm going to use this and I want to have fun, because I knew that I could be with anything that came up. And this just happened on New Year's, right? You guys were both there. And you want me to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, the universe
absolutely.
said, you said anything, Sean. Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah. So, for all the listeners out there, like I had the perfect night, and the best part about it was nowhere on my radar. We just knew it was New Year's. We were going to get together and have a good time. The group of us that got together was very unexpected. Me personally, I was expecting like 4 to 5 people, small group, chilled New Year's, have some fun. And what ended up happening was there's a bigger group of us that got together. Everything just flowed throughout the night. I got to connect with people on a different level that I've just have not connected before. I got to support people through what they were experiencing. And then at the end of the night, I don't know who we got in contact with, what aliens or entities or beings. And my man Benjoy got to guide me, like, as I'm wrapping up what I thought was wrapping up this night, like going out there to reflect about, man, this night's been awesome. I felt so loved and supported. I got to just support someone through their stuff. And I thought I was going to go out there to have a spliff and reflect. And whatever happened, Ben and I dropped into something and he took me on a fucking journey in the best way possible. Like when I thought it couldn't get any better, he helped me just really get down to some deep rooted sadness and pain that I hadn't been feeling. That a witchy friend of ours helped me see just by looking into my soul. No big deal.
Yeah. NBD.
Yeah. NBD. And Ben tapped in, started channeling some shit. And like, I got to really be with that. So like, here was this experience with all these medicines, and it just led me on this incredible journey. And to cap it with me being like strong enough, feeling safe enough, and just committing to the process. And I noticed what was going on as soon as Ben started like taking me through what was happening. And I was like, you know what? This is the time to do it. And so I got to use the medicine at that point to go from this like love and support and fun and dancing to, oh, there's some work that can be done here. And I went headfirst into it and was super supported throughout the whole thing. And then at the end of the night, it ended with me declaring to our entire group of friends these new declarations that I came up with, that I am seen, I am supported, and that I'm standing in my fucking gifts. So like the medicine helped me get in touch. And it was very clear after I've reflected on it that the medicine was just the tool that led me back to myself, which is where all these answers were this whole time, right? Which is one of those beautiful things that these medicines can do. And it takes intention, it takes courage, and it takes a willingness to even want to go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And it's just the way it all unfolded. I got to experience all ends of the spectrums of emotions. And even the times when it fucking hurt, like to come to terms with the moment that I abandoned myself as a child because for whatever reason, and to be able to reconnect back to that, feel it, be there for that little version of me, and then to come out on the other side just lit the fuck up. Like my chest was just fucking on fire.
Tornado.
It's just red tornado swirling swirling clockwise like a fucking hurricane. And I got in touch with that and was just like blasting energy out of my hands and like just felt so loved and supported. It was fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
That's amazing.
And
I want to commend you too, because when we talk about so people know what went head first into it means is Sean's there. He's sitting in the chair. He's got his eyes closed. He's crying like the most painful tears I've ever seen. And then he comes out and he's like, Ben, what are you doing? You're sending me on these journeys and I don't know what's going on. And all I could say was, do you want to stop? He said, no. And you leaned right back. All right, here we go.
At one point, I was like, fuck you, Ben. No, I'm not going to stop. And I just sat right back into it. I was like, I can't believe, like in the moment, I was like, I can't believe I just did this. Like, I committed. Like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun time.
That's beautiful. And like, there's something that one of our teachers says a lot that ricochets in my head all the time, which is there's levels to this shit, right? And that applies nowhere better in my mind than psychedelics, right? And so like what you're hearing right now is like what is possible and what can be available when you do medicines with people that are very in touch with themselves and also very aware of you and are able to see things in you that you may not see and call them out and bring awareness to them, right? And help you see. And with the medicines, they bring down a lot of your protectors, a lot of the things that your ego uses to protect you from whatever quote unquote dangers are in the world. And so, it's amazing that we can be at this point in our own journeys where we can come together and do medicines in such an amazing container. And I know for both of you, I imagine there's been a time where the set and setting just hasn't been good, right? Like, and I know for me, I started using psychedelics back in 2014, and they revolutionized my life in a very quick amount of time. And I wasn't integrating properly because I wasn't in the right set and settings. Luckily, there was no like I think back to when I was first starting to do mushrooms, and we would just watch movies, right, and have a good time. And how possible it would have been during those times to have a moment where like your psyche actually like can fragment, right? Because you're just not aware of what you're doing. Like you were saying perfectly, right? Like, there are times where, and this is a big thing that's going on right now. Like people they think the right intention. They want to see something. They're curious, and so they seek these medicines out, and maybe they don't dose them right. Maybe they're around the wrong people, et cetera. And that can be where, in my experience, challenge happens. I think I've told you guys my experience of the 18-gram mushroom tea, the penis envy mushroom tea, that sent me into a literal spiral that I thought I was dying, And on the other side of that was the feather bed that, Terrence McKenna talks about, right? But finding that, luckily, I was at a point in my evolution where I could guide myself home. And so I'm curious, we'll start with Ben, like, what's been a set and setting or a story of a set and setting where something has gone awry? Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show.
I've been very fortunate to be in very good set and settings for every journey that I've done. That's something I've been very conscious of. Like I don't want to take 5 grams and then just go like
to a music festival.
Yeah, go to a music festival or like
yeah,
something like that. Where like having done that now and knowing what blasting off out of your body is like I want to do that in a very very safe and controlled place where I know the variables.
Yeah.
What I have had happen is the wrong medicine for the right setting. For me, LSD just makes me really heady, and when I do that, it's really hard for me to be present and actually enjoy what's going on. So like we went to Envision Fest in Costa Rica, and the first night we only did LSD.
Yep.
And I was just
Ben would have a great time.
Yeah, I was having a great fucking time.
Yeah.
I was just standing there with my arms crossed, going like, what are we doing? We're just waving our hands around. What the hell is this? And at the same time having Closey melt my face.
Yeah.
And it was a weird instance of like being pretty miserable and at the same time going, oh my God, this music. Yeah. What the hell is going on? So it's more that like for me, and I know in that sort of setting, LSD is not my medicine. Is what I've learned from that. And I've had other instances too where I just take LSD and boom, right in my head. Yeah, but like that's been the lesson for me of being mindful of how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel in this situation, and knowing what medicine is going to make me feel that way and what medicine is not going to make me feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a very good point too, because I've definitely had that happen to me many times, especially, like cue any music festival I've ever gone to. There's always one day where you're like, well, yikes, that was a whoopsie, and again, luckily the people I've been with have been able to like handle their own, because for me, like that's when, especially like you talk about with LSD, like at music festivals, I've found that's something that's very widely used. And it's a very intense medicine, like very intense in terms of like a yang energy. Whereas I would imagine like mushrooms are more of a yin. At least they are for me. Like I can kind of ground myself. If they get too overwhelming, just find a hammock and you're good. LSD on the other hand, right? Like it's almost like I got to do something. Like I have to do something and I don't know what that is. And you can just get stuck in that loop. And then like your 8th slice of pizza, you're like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Right. And so like, I'm very glad you brought that up. And so I'm curious to Sean, you know, I know you're newer to psychedelics, and so I imagine that you've been much more responsible and like, you know, intention setting with your psychedelic use. But I'm curious, has there ever been a time where you've like just taken something and it hasn't been around the right people or the right setting? Let's dive into that.
Yeah. So, similar to Benjoy's story, like I had a very dark time at Envision as well. That was my first time taking LSD. And I have a much different relationship to it now.
Yeah.
I imagine I can go into that setting, but I mean, in and of itself, like, yeah, especially if it's your first time, and not having a relationship with the medicine, like, yeah, that was a very rough time for me as well. Like it got very dark at times. And similarly, like there's times I was at least able to enjoy the music and I was feeling things. There was 0 visuals, and I imagine I ended up close to 3 hits by the end of the night, which was a lot for me.
Yeah, that's a good size dose.
So yeah, there was that experience. My first eye experience, it definitely could have felt safer. Going into a room with 50 people like that
you don't know.
Yeah, especially with eye, that's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah,
I think 10 to 15 would be like tops.
Yeah,
and I ended up going to Solterra and sat in ceremony there, and that was a very great experience. Although also very funny because I fucked up, and long story short, I took my first dose. Somebody got fucking crazy, and we could not get her to come back to reality, and it took me out of my experience. I was like, I don't feel anything, and I took a full dose. So I went and re-upped with another full dose. Ended up having a great journey. We close the ceremony, I leave the Maloka, and it's just like, fuck, that was amazing. Like, that was exactly what I needed. Go to sit down. They have fresh fruit out for us, have a couple pieces of cantaloupe. And then it becomes, man, things are starting to move again. Like, I don't remember it. Like, usually when I'm out of it, I'm out of it. It's like, wow, that's weird. Kept sitting with it, and then it got more intense, had another piece of fruit, got more intense. And then I start looking at everybody. I'm like, is anybody else feeling this? And they're like, dude, what are you talking about? I was like, I got to go. And so someone had to walk me back up to my room. And apparently I felt the first dose in the Maloka. And then the second dose hit me. And they're like, oh, yeah, like if you eat fresh fruit, like it could reactivate or, you know, whatever. I was like,
potentiate it.
Yeah, so that was terrifying. Spent a lot of time on the floor in my room and not feeling well. But yeah, the overall experience was way better than when I did it in the States, for sure. So that was definitely time, because it did. I got very dark. Like I said, my first eye experience, I thought I hit the endless loop of this will never end. Like, this is my life now.
Yeah.
So that was terrifying. It didn't help because when I came out of it and I started to feel the bliss, one of the space holders, like, I just went up and tried to talk to her, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, fuck, I thought you would know. I thought you would know. Like, you're holding space for this to happen. So yeah, there was that time. And then other than that, I've been very fortunate because it's been very intentional use. So I've not used anything that I did not feel comfortable doing. So all my mushroom experiences, like, dark at times, but I always felt supported and safe, for sure. And I know, like, the setting wasn't the reason for that. But yeah, so definitely my festival experience. Be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If especially with LSD, like, Molly's fun.
Yeah.
Mushies are fun.
Yeah.
I now have a great relationship with LSD.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely be careful with them. And especially being in, like, we were in Costa Rica. So there's already a sense of like, my guard's up because I'm like, I'm in this foreign country.
Very overwhelming.
Yeah. It was very overwhelming. You're in the fucking jungle, right? First festival in general. So oops.
we went varsity real quick.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, I'm known to jump in the fire anyway, so I'm glad it happened that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, those are the only 2 times I can think of where setting were definitely were definitely factors into having a little bit of a dark experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up, like, the power of intention, right? Because that's something we got to touch on. And this is why I love you guys, right? Because I feel like we've painted so far a very accurate description of what you can expect, right, on psychedelics. And so we've given people a really good context.
I'll put a push pin in that. We should talk about the awesome ones we've had, too.
That's exactly,
That was just some challenging ones. Let's talk about what was really cool. Because we had some really fucking cool ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I'm going to double down, man, right?
Oh.
So think about this, right? So in my experience, I've learned that when I set some sort of intention, I have a better experience, right? And so seeing as how, for those listening, like Sean, Ben, and I were coaches, right? So we've been doing a lot of this walking on coals type work, with our emotional bodies, to put it lightly.
Mad scientist brain.
Yeah.
Mad scientist, yes.
And so in doing that, I know I've gotten much better at like setting an intention that actually resonates in me, right? So I'd love to touch on like if each of you could go into a brief description of what intention has done for you, and then the best experience you've ever had on anything.
Oh shit!
Marvelous.
Yep.
So what intentions are? For me, it's what I want to get out of the journey, so that I'm going in there with an objective, and there's a balance between like being loose and being specific with the objective, because it's like it can't be the objective of like I want to have a 6-pack after this. That's not going to work. But then you can try. Yeah. But then on the other hand, if the objective is like I want to step into my power. Like that's going to be apologies. That sounded really catty when I said it.
I was like, I just did that.
Yeah. The thing being, like,
I got it.
That is actually very ambiguous.
Yeah.
And it needs to there's some more work you need to do around like what stepping into your power means to you. So I've had great intentions of like the challenging one that I had where I laid on Sean's chest. My intention was what's on the other side of judgment. I like to ask questions. I like to ask the emotions questions. And that journey, like in and of itself, I had this challenging point where it was like this nails on a chalkboard feeling. Because I had 3.5 grams, and I did have a very brief death of like, blasted off for like a hot second and then came back. And then as soon as I came back, it was this nails on a chalkboard. Something's not right. Which I equate that to, it's like your ego's been shut off, so it's coming back into a room, but you've rearranged all the furniture. Yep. So it's like, what? This is the same room, but this is different. And at what I was able to do in that journey, I was supported by some great friends in doing this, was purging out the judgment. And then there was fucking beautiful play and acceptance and love and friendship, all of that on the other side. So that's like an example of how the intentions work, is saying like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to be different about me. I've had one of like, to seek out vulnerable moments was an intention of mine. And that was, I did 7 grams and came back knowing what oneness was. Yeah. Like the thing you can't use words for, I knew what it was. Fuck. The coolest experience, though, that I've had on anything was the first time I did 5 grams. I'd had 2 3.5 gram experiences that weren't pretty much non-experiences. Like very little visual, like I saw pretty colors, felt some euphoria, but that was it. And then 5 grams, it was like in the movies with like the visuals, like someone's moving their head and you see like a trace, their head leaves behind a trail. And the cool thing being like looking at that, and my vision didn't feel blurred or impaired. I was like, I'm actually seeing this shit. And then we started to come out of it. There were 3 of us. Buddy Dave took 3.5, Lupe took 2, I took 5, and we're starting to come out of it, and I was having a great fucking time. So I was like, it's cannabis time. So I grabbed a King Palm, which is probably why this journey went the way it did. We smoked it, and then I'm lying there on the couch, and I feel myself like leaving my body. And what was cool is, and I haven't been able to achieve this level of excitement. I've been scared the last few times it's happened, but this time I was like, oh fuck yes, I'm blasting off. This is what people talk about. Yes. Yeah. I remember Lupe coming up to check on me. I was like, Lupe, I'm blasting off. And then I closed my eyes. And you know when you're in a pool and you kick off the wall to go swim. I did that to my body. My energetic body kicked off out of my physical body. And then I went on a Disney World ride, like It's a Small World style, through the Garden of Eden. There were like these big, like beehive-shaped golden structures that had hanging Gardens of Babylon type vegetation on them. And yeah, I'm going through this ride and it's just like, wow. And then I blasted off up into Orion and met my guides. I've recently become opened up a channel to the Akashic Records. Still exploring that one.
No big deal.
Yeah, whatever. And
Typical
I talked to
Thursday.
aliens. It's fine. And they held a coronation for me, and it was like if you watched the Phantom Menace Star Wars movies, like that the prequels. There's scenes in the Senate, the Intergalactic Senate. It was like that. It was huge, filled with these light beings holding a coronation for me. And I remember they handed me a scepter, and I think they might have handed me like one of those like ball things too. And I remember just being like, yes, yes. And then there was a funeral for the boy, the boy self, and I remember there being a sadness to it, and also it's time for you to go. That's okay. And then I came back to my body, and I think the first thing I said was, "I'm a fucking sack of meat." And I'd been eating pork rinds, so then I became king of the pork rinds. And then spent another like hour just walking around the room, going, "Holy shit! What?" Yeah, apologies for screaming in your ears. Give you the real representation of it.
You got to feel it, man.
Felt
Yeah,
it.
it's like coming off of the most epic, mind-bending roller coaster ride that you can ever imagine, and just like struggling to come to terms with like that fucking happened. And what was cool was all three of us blasted off at the exact same time. So I woke up and Dave and Lupe were in child's pose on the floor, and I was just like, "Did y'all feel that? That was my coronation." Because I'm king of the pork rinds
Threw
now.
his fucking dick on the table.
Basically. And then we spent the rest of the night just being like, holy shit, in many different ways as we could say that. And that is still my favorite mushroom experience to date.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've had very similar experiences on mushrooms, and it's funny, like I've had similar, like same but different experiences on LSD, which we'll get into. But like mine on mushrooms, there's this certain veil that when you break through it, usually what I'll do is, we'll do 5 grams each, and we'll just lay in bed in Shavasana pose, put frequencies on. Like this sounds super woke for everyone listening. I know, guilty as charged. But like we lay there, we listen to frequencies, and there's a certain point where I just come to and I realize I'm like completely awareness. Like I've disconnected from everything else in my being, and I'm just awareness, and I get to be like, oh, where do I want to go? And just swirl through the universe. And I remember the last time that happened, I came back giggling so much. I became so like me, and I came back giggling, just like having these realizations over and over and going, it's all love. It's all love. And just like freaking out and like talking to Rachel, like, are you feeling this love? Like, it's all love. And she's like, I get it. Yeah. And it was just so funny. It's curious that mushrooms are the ones that have done that to both of us, And so
I want something that came to mind that I need to add to this. So the Disney World ride through the Garden of Eden, I spent the first 2 months of quarantine outside of Zion National Park in Utah, favorite place in the world. And we drove into Zion Canyon one day. I remember looking around, and Zion Canyon has these fucking golden sandstone beehive structures, and I just went, oh, fuck, this is what I saw. Holy shit, I've never been here before, but this is what I saw.
Yeah.
So, yeah, since then, too, it's that place of the country, everywhere around it is very, very special to me.
Yeah.
Because Mushroom showed it to me for some reason.
That's beautiful. And, like, what I've realized is that, like, the more I think I know, the more I don't know. And, like, so, like, I imagine everyone listening has had this experience, too, where, like, you hear something like Ben just said, and you're like, oh, like, I want to find out why. And it's like, you'll never find out why, and it's extremely important. You know, like, period. Like, those are, like, the funny things that you realize, like, whatever it is super important, and I'm probably never going to know exactly what it was, and it's okay to surrender to that.
Yeah, if you try to find meaning in any of this shit, you're going to be very frustrated.
Yeah.
I'm really good at adding meaning to things. And this is difficult.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, Sean, like, you know, if you could talk a moment about intention, what it's done for you, and what your best experience thus far has been. Well, even though it might have been the other night, but even still.
I'm going to be unreasonable on the sharing the experience. I'm going to talk about multiple ones.
All right, cool. We like unreasonability around here.
Yeah, so intentions. My first lesson with intentions was actually the lack of intentions. And what that did is it showed me I wasn't trusting my intuition. So my first good chunk of medicines didn't have many intentions other than help. And it was from a very wounded place. Like I'm broken, fix me. So yeah, I had some rough experiences. And then once I really started to understand the importance of it, right, through the power of language even, I was more consciously setting intentions and seeing the results of it, like Ben said. Like, it gave me the direction. It's just adding direction to the experience, because like my first ones were fucking all over the place because I didn't have a direction. So it's just a lot of things happened. And then I like some open, I can think of it as an embodiment as well. Like, I am curious was one that I took on for one of my Aya ceremonies. And so, yeah, it's super beneficial. And even if it's just to have fun, like setting an intention, if you're just getting together with a group of friends to go to a party, like just throw on some music and have a great time, that's okay intention.
Take out the just, because fun is the fucking point.
Right? Yeah, exactly. A really funny intention that I have heard, which ended up being beautiful, was a Halloween party, and met this lady who was a professional dancer and cheerleader. So she could move her body, to say the least. Her intention for the night was to get ratchet. And I got to witness her purr and her sharing that, like, that's her in her truest state. And it just happens naturally. It's not something that she's consciously doing. Like, that's fucking cool. And then by the end of the night, when we're peaked on Molly, and then I had taken some acid, and that was starting to kick in, she just like turns the music off and goes, "Alrighty, guys, like, I still haven't filled my intention, so I'm gonna get ratchet." And she threw on some fucking ratchet music and got down and dirty and danced her ass off. It was fucking dope. Like, it ended up taking me on a journey, like, every time she danced, and she was fucking good. So if you're listening to this, you know who you are.
When you know, you know.
When you know, you know. You know? So yeah, intention's huge. It could really direct things for you. And it's a good thing to come back to if you're having a dark time too. So even just, I still use the "I am safe, I trust this experience." Like, that's a must reminder. So it's like, when you're having one of those moments, you're like, "No, I'm good. It's cool." So yeah, intentions are great. And then as far as stories go, yeah, the story I mentioned earlier is by far like the ultimate experience that I've ever fucking had. Because like, to really find you again and like stand in your gifts, and just, I felt everything. It was amazing. Like, even talking about it now, I can feel it in my chest. So that was by far like the best experience. I have some very memorable ones though. So Envision, second day, we had SAS and LSD. And it's the first time I've ever had a heart-opening substance like that. And listening to Rufus, I was like, I melted into everybody and felt like all the fucking love. I remember like turning around and just beaming love to everyone behind me, just. And then a good friend of ours, Danny Rios, Big Bubby. I just remember him, like, he was just crying the happiest tears because like Rufus is his jam, and they played his song. And he was just fucking bawling his eyes out and just so happy and loved. I was just like, and it made me feel the same thing. I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And we gave each other a big sweaty hug. So that was super memorable. My first mushroom journey was like a very visual one. That was really cool. It's definitely the most visuals I've ever had. I had a moment with Aya. So we had two healers, a male and a female, and they would do a joint Ikaro to start the ceremony off, and then they would individually go to each person, and you get a personal Ikaro sung to you, which is fucking crazy because at the shenanigans in Austin, this girl started channeling my Ikaro. Yeah.
Oh shit!
Because she was doing her thing, making the noises and speaking that dialect or whatever, and I was just like, this sounds so fucking familiar.
Yeah.
And Mr. Bledsoe was like he saw what was going on. He's like, I want to talk to you. Like, I know people that can help you with this. And I was talking to him. I was like, dude, that sounded so familiar. Like, I've heard this before. He's like, it's an Ikaro. And it fucking dawned on me. I had that song sung to me during my Aya ceremony.
Wow.
And so I was like, holy shit, like, this is crazy, right? Like, you start having experiences like that, and you know there's something.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one Aya ceremony, I think it was our last day, the woman came to me and fucking spit a rap for my Ikaro. I thought she was fucking like Eminem, just throwing down and just fucking like, she was like beatboxing and rapping at the same time in their like, in their language.
Wow.
And I just started fucking dancing. And like when she got done, I felt fucking amazing, like just super blissed out. And a few minutes goes by and I was like, did that happen? Or am I crazy? And then after we closed the ceremony, someone was like, yo, who the fuck got rapped to during the ceremony? I was like, oh shit, it happened.
Yeah,
so like that was an amazing experience. And like they blow, oh man, it is a trippy experience. Like they will fucking like put oils on you and like blow it into your face.
Yeah.
And when you're in the dark and you just see the shadow in front of you and this is going on, talk about an experience. Like, wow. So yeah, there was that. And then what was another good experience? A really powerful one was definitely August, the mushroom ceremony. I got to support Benjoy. For all my Marvel fans out there, if you've seen all the Marvel movies and Avengers Endgame, Tony Stark, gives his life to defeat the enemy, and his wife comes over and she's like, "You can finally rest now, Tony." And like my experience was, I got to feel what it was like to be in his shoes and to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders and to live with that constant fucking panic and fear and heaviness of like, I have to do everything I can to protect these people. Like I was feeling that, and I got to feel that weight be lifted off of me. So that was like a super powerful experience, but it started off very, very, very dark.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what I did. I couldn't get away from it. Yeah. Went outside, it sucked me in. Came inside, sucked me in. Like I just could, and I was surrendering to it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, some friends came over and got me to open up, and in those moments I got to see. But yeah, that was a super powerful experience. Like to have that weight lifted off, like whoo, to feel that rested. Yeah, that was crazy. So, this got to be the best one because it's my first real like holy shit experience, and it was on cannabis.
Yeah.
Cannabis and a song playlist. That was it. Like I was so like shocked coming out of this experience, which is the 24-hour experience I talked about before. When I came to enough to try to talk to people, I was talking to our friend Mike Bledsoe. I was just like, "Are you feeling this right now?" He's like, "No, man. Like, you're in something. Like, have fun." I'm like, "Well, like, wait, what is happening?" He's like, "Dude, just enjoy it." I'm like, "What did you do? What did you do? Like, are these some like magic songs on the black market that like zap you in this frequency and just fucking blast you off?" And he was just like, he wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
And so I was terrified of this music since then. It ate at me. And so I found his playlist on his Spotify. And like I remember this, like the next time I would let myself listen to it was like almost a year later. And I was just like, I had a cool little experience, but I started to recognize like, oh shit, like there was nothing with the music. It was just the right songs like got me into the zone. So but that was like, I had people working on me during this journey. I watched them clean my teeth and I could feel them go tooth by tooth. It was like they were moving them.
Wow.
And it was like I was getting this visual like as it was happening, and then like it started to go joint by joint in my body, and it felt like I had at least 6 hands on me that were putting my body into perfect alignment. So like imagine just like my right shoulder being tugged around and I'm on the ground and it's just happening. And it's like, wait, here no.
And you, by
Right
people
there.
working on you, you don't mean physical people.
No, like there was entities, like there were hands on me by people that weren't there.
Yeah.
So like I Yeah, it was fucking nuts. And then like my entire body, I could I was slithering like a snake, but like I could feel every joint in my body actually moving with it. So it's not like it was just my hips and like my knees or something. Like it was the craziest experience. And somebody there confirmed it because when I like sat up, he looked at me. He's like, "Dude, what the fuck were you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm scared." Yeah. Then I went to bed, made myself orgasm without touching myself. That was cool.
You guys thought psychedelics are cool. Now you think they're really cool.
Like, you guys are getting a pretty good glimpse. And I imagine there's some much more epic stories, but they're getting a good variety here for the first episode.
Yeah. Something I really like about what you said, because I had a similar experience my last night of training camp for the soul in that, like, huge heart cracked wide open feeling. And so it's like, if we're going to talk about psychedelics, I think stuff like training camp for the soul, retreats like that, that's a psychedelic experience.
Well, that's the set and setting you want. I mean, talk about like the platinum grade set and setting that I don't even think the world knows exists right now. Like, that type of set and setting is exactly like the perfect one.
Yeah. It's so safe and like the most heart open.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I did that before I'd done any mushrooms. So I have that experience then to compare to when I've had really hard opening experiences on mushrooms. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And all I had was a couple hits of a joint.
Yep.
So like it is, people say like you don't need them.
No.
So, and I think that's important.
It's very important
for people to understand is that these states are achievable without, going balls deep into the medicine. And like think like retreats like that really should be looked at as a psychedelic experience. Because I remember sitting there in a circle, we're all just hanging out, and like every time the conversation stopped, I would close my eyes and I could feel all the love pouring in from everyone into me and pouring out of me into everyone else. And like I said, exactly the same as when I've had those experiences on psychedelics.
Yeah, like, there's a guy I know who talks about peak, spelled P-E-A-K, versus peak, P-E-E-K experiences. Like, peak experiences, right? P-E-A-K is like, oh my God, you're doing these psychedelics, you're having these revelations, right? But as we talked about earlier today, like, without integration, you're just going to fall right back into the same patterns, right? A peak experience is getting a peek into what you were saying, that like, oh my God, this is actually just how what the human body can do on its own, right? And so, like, valuing those two types of experiences, like, make sure you're not doing too many P-E-A-K experiences, because you're probably getting this limiting belief of like, oh, I have to be in this state to get this result, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, I'm really glad we're bringing this up, because again, this is one of the big reasons I started this show, is for everyone listening, like, not everyone is meant to do psychedelics. Like, and I don't go with the whole dose the planet thing. I don't agree on that. I really think that if you're curious about it, and when you know, like, if you're genuinely curious, that's probably a good sign. Like, that's what I found with the people I've chatted with and the people that, I've talked with about psychedelics. On the other hand, if you're like a hell no, like, hold your boundaries. Like, don't let someone like convince you, like, in your heart of hearts, if it's time for you to try those things. And they are extremely powerful medicines. And with great power comes great responsibility, right? And so, I really love that you brought that up. And I've had some of my best experiences really just on cannabis. And like, I'm so glad you brought that up, Sean, because people forget, like, and for those of you listening, I was in the cannabis industry for the past 5 years, have been into growing for a long time, and have really found something like unique with organic love-grown cannabis, right? Cannabis, I feel, is a very powerful psychedelic. It definitely can be anyway. When I first started getting into using cannabis back when I was 17, I had all the stories you were talking about, how it was going to, ruin my brain and all this stuff. But I remember, like, I would take one hit and go inside and just like out of body experiences for 3-4 hours. I would do it like once a week on a Saturday, and and I would watch Star Wars and like crush Nature Valley bars. It was bad, and so I'm curious, on the subject of cannabis, what's been your take on cannabis as legality has come in, and as all of these other psychedelics too are getting decriminalized, like in Oregon? Shout out to Oregon for leading the way in that. But I'm curious, what is your stance on psychedelics becoming more popular, more readily available. Cannabis specifically being used so widely, in my experience, without a lot of what I've experienced from working with people directly one-on-one is many people are just like getting blasted on cannabis and having no idea what the hell's going on. And they don't even know they should question it. So it's like, oh, I don't know. I just got super paranoid yesterday and had to sit down and had a panic attack. No idea why, but I'm going to try it again today, you know? And so I'm curious, like, what your stance is on all of that happening. Like, do you think it's great? Like, do you think it's bad? What are you thinking about it?
I think it's great, and there needs to be a lot more education going on before that happens.
Yeah.
Like before there's a mushroom dispensary.
Yeah.
There needs to be a whole lot of education that goes on about what a mushroom journey is like, what to expect, like how to create the right set and setting, because otherwise, though, like I could see the worst case scenario is a bunch of people taking it and just like running around in the city screaming because they're on mushrooms and they're freaking out and they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. So that's my take on it. Is I think it's awesome, and I think it should totally be recreationally legal, because there's so many people who can benefit from it, and as I'm cool with that as long as there is some sort of comprehensive education that comes along with it, because the people I know who go, oh, I don't really like mushrooms, are the ones who like had it on pizza. Yep. and like had it on pizza and then went out to a concert or something like that. Yeah. There's all sorts of like that the mushrooms could be reacting with the pizza. Yeah. That's probably not a good idea. Yeah. And like people don't know that. So yeah. Education. Yeah. No, I love that you brought that up, because that's exactly my stance. I'm like, I couldn't be happier with all this stuff happening. And I'm also aware that like many people are getting like this view of psychedelics, like, oh, like they're fine. Like they're not going to hurt me. And it's like, you know, yes, you may not die, right? Like that is a possibility too. Like if you decide you can fly, like, you know, these medicines that are quote unquote non-toxic could be very toxic in other ways, right? You know, but if you're allowed to be educated on it, right? And this is, again, why, like, this podcast is becoming a thing, because I really feel as though people should be able to hear both sides and go, okay, so there is some risk, right? Like, I should check in with myself. I should see where I'm at. I should see, like, you know what? If I'm uncomfortable and I'm still curious, maybe that's time to seek out, like, a guided experience with a shaman, right? Like, that's what shaman have been doing for thousands of years, right? Is helping people through their experiences so they come back safely and they come back fully themselves, you know? And that's huge, you know. Highly recommend having someone guide you. Yeah, the first time. Same. Highly recommend. Same. Yeah. Yeah, and so I'm curious, you know, Sean, what's your take? You know, do you have the same opinion? Are you, you know, anything you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, so similar stance. I think it's great. And, yeah, education's key. Yeah. I really would love to see a push for the therapy-assisted sessions. Yep.
You just experienced one on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah. And by therapy, I don't mean your traditional therapy. Yeah. I would prefer, I know there's this big rift in the therapy versus coaching world, or, you know, being a life coach or whatever. Yeah. Rightfully so, because the life coaches are fucking nailing it. Yeah. Absolutely. Like they're working from experience. And so I would like to see, I would love to see the two combine. Like, let's get the studies in on what it looks like to, or like the tools to become a good therapist, like get the knowledge, because there is value there, but let it be from the perspective of like, I'm a human fucking being just looking to support somebody. Yep. Right. Instead of like, oh, the people just come to me because they want to stop feeling like shit. Right. There's a huge difference between someone who wants to grow and they see that part of the journey is going to be some painful shit versus I hate my life sucks. I'm just going to go talk to someone to make it better. So I can just stop feeling this. Yeah. So yeah, definitely I would love to see a push for the therapy assisted education would be great. And essentially integration coaches step up, right? It's a conversation we've been having, and plant medicine is one of the top areas where people are getting their worlds rocked and not knowing what to do. So like, even if someone listens to this episode for the first time and then they decide to go try psychedelics, they could still get their fucking world rocked, even if they follow all of our tips.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you don't know it until it hits you, and you
Yep.
go, "Oh shit!"
Yep.
Right, and then from there to have people help support in them being able to integrate and embody that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a rocky journey, guys. So if you're listening to this, it took me 2.5 years to learn this.
Yeah.
And now that I'm like standing in it, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So if you want to shave years off of your integration experience, start integrating. Like take action on that shit.
And let's go into what integration actually looks like. 'Cause
I'm
we've
so
been
glad
saying
you
that
went
there
there.
a whole
We're on
bunch
the
of
same
times.
page, guys.
Because it's the difference between, and Sean and I tripped out about this at Envision, is this is my new sober.
Yeah.
And what was cool is I remember we went to the Arnold Sports Expo right afterwards, and I did some shit like starting a wave with a bunch of people I didn't know in very sparsely populated stands that I would never have had the balls to do
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
But it was because of understanding how to integrate.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, integration is you have an experience, and what you need to do is take the feeling of that experience and go, if this is me, what actions can I do if this is me? And what that does is it teaches you step by step how to embody that identity that only just became available to you. So I'm trying to think of an example. So like an example is I had a thing about that I worked through in training camp for the soul about asking for what I wanted. And even to the point where like asking for what I wanted for my birthday was really uncomfortable for me. So the integration was to ask my parents what I wanted for my birthday, or ask my parents for what I wanted for my birthday. That's a really simple example of, okay, I know that I'm safe to ask for what I want. I know that if they say no, it's also okay, and I'm also safe. So when that's true, I can ask for what I want.
Yeah, because, and so like even another layer of that is what you're embodying is that your wants matter. So that's just, and so his action of asking for what he wants on his birthday is him embodying, yeah, my wants fucking matter. So I'm going to speak up about it.
Yeah, it comes down to reps.
Yep.
It's the exact same thing as if you want to get a stronger deadlift. You got to deadlift a bunch to make your deadlift stronger. So, like, let's say another integration of mine has been dancing. I was terrified of dancing. And a positive LSD experience. My first LSD experience was a 3-hour Lane 8 concert. Oh my God. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I unlocked dancing that night. And I was able to dance freely, and then I brought that back into my regular life and made a point when there was a dance floor to get out on it because I knew that I could. I knew I was capable of that because I'd seen it happen. I'd experienced it. And even though there was still some discomfort, because it took me a little while to work up to it, I'm now at the point where I feel like a fucking rock star. I feel so cool.
Yeah.
And that's like finally getting to that point. So that's the other thing is like, yeah, I unlocked dancing, but it took me like most of that next year to feel cool while I was dancing.
Yeah.
And if I'd just gone, oh, okay, I unlocked dancing, and then not danced since then, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So the integration was to keep putting myself in that position and having that experience and going, okay, how was that? Yeah, I did great. I moved. People didn't laugh at me. Okay, cool. I can do this again. So when you're having your, I even remember when we saw Rufus. And the guy is going around like, this is an experience, everyone. What are you going to take home with you? And it was straight up saying, like, yeah, pick something right now that you are going to take home from this.
It's beautiful.
And yeah, that part is so important because otherwise it's you just had a fun night.
Yep, exactly.
Which, like, that's cool, but you could turn that into a life-changing night if you take the time to go, okay, what can be different now? What's available to me now? What's possible now that I wouldn't let myself have, do, or say before? And really focusing on speed of implementation and seeing the opportunity and doing it as soon as you see it.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I'm so glad we brought this up because integration is honestly the most important aspect, I feel, of my own psychedelic use. And I 100% agree with what you said. Like, what I've realized about integration is just looking at what your peak experience of that trip was, right? The PEEK experience, right? What did you get a glimpse of that is you, but for some reason it's not you, right? Like, what did you get a glimpse at? And then ask yourself, what else can you do in my case, like, that will bring that out? And chances are, like, you've been having these urges to do something. I want to start playing guitar, you know, but then some story comes in about, like, in my case, for instance, like when I want to start something new, the old story was, well, if you can't be the best at it right off the bat, then what's the point of even doing it, right? And you can see how that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because then I don't do it, and then I still suck at it, and then I'm not good at it. So it's like, you know, for me, it was like being able to, with that story, take something back and go, okay, you know what? This week I'm going to try this thing that I've been nervous about. And then now I'm at a point where, like, trying new things is fun again, you know? And that all came from a peak experience I got on a mushroom trip, you know? And so, yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. Anything you want to add to that, Sean?
I mean, that was very well put. It's the realm that I'm working in now, and it's been my most difficult journey. So, yeah, Ben put it beautifully. And another way you can look at it is integrating is when you're able to get to the point where you're taking action from a place of alignment between the heart and the mind, right? So if those are in alignment and you take action that fulfills that, that's integrating. Because it's not just going out and doing anything. Like the intention is, yeah, when you have those experiences, you get to release what you want to let go of, and you obviously tap into what it is that you want to step into. So then, yeah, you need to make sure you're asking yourself, what was the lesson I learned in that? What was the version of myself that I got to see that I've been wanting to step into? Because these things don't just show up. There's a part of you that's like, hey, I want to step into this new version of me. And you might not know what that looks like. And then you have an experience like this and you go, oh shit, that's what it looks like.
Yep.
So like Ben said, like, you tap back into that feeling and your action should be guiding you back to that feeling. Right. So if one of my new mantras that came out of this last experience, I am seen. And that could be a very vague or ambiguous. I have clarity on what that means now. And so, like, I know that means speaking up when there's something I have to say, or if I sense something on someone and saying, like, hey, just put your hands here, like, do that. And like in the moments when, if something comes up and I need support, ask for support. So it's like, I now know, like, those are the things that are going to help me be seen.
Yeah.
And like, same with I am supported, right? That one's a little bit more clear. Like, yeah, I ask for fucking support.
Yeah.
You know, if I need help with something, I ask for fucking help. So, but yeah, to be able to do that. And then, yeah, so that integration is stepping into those actions. So that's why I would love to see more conversations around the actual feeling side of things instead of the cerebral story shit. Right. And, this is what I do have to add integration. Like, you know, you integrate when you're able to take those fucking crazy concepts of, like, I'm one with the universe, or like we're all connected. Like, when you're able to take that and break it down into something that you can do in your life, like, that's fucking integrating. Like, so many people get stuck in that conversation that's just, you're so out there, and it's like, anyone who's had that experience gets it. Like, yeah, if you say one with the universe, I remember feeling that at one point.
Yeah.
But what good does that do if you can't make it applicable to your life?
Yeah, you got to quantify it somehow.
Yeah, so that's when I hear that from people's experiences, I help them just, like, we're going to dumb this down to this most simplest form that we can. What did you feel? Oh, I felt this thing in my chest. Cool. We're going to stick with that. I don't give a fuck about oneness with the universe right now. Like, let's just stick with this.
Yeah.
Can we get you to do something to feel that again? Oh yeah, if I do X, Y, Z. Okay, cool. Now we have a path. Now they can integrate that and then go have another experience and be like, oh shit, I feel something. This is what I need to take home with me.
Yeah.
Instead of being lost out in the stars.
Yeah.
So, like, that's when you know someone's integrated it.
Yeah.
And 2 points on that. I like that you brought up the oneness with the universe. One, because that too is like it's like when you're faced with infinite possibility.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't do anything with that. So it's the same thing with oneness. If you can't use words, like, what do you do with that? And in my experience, when I had the journey where I knew what oneness was. I think it was either the next day or the day after we were doing combo. And I didn't have an intention for it yet. And then with, oneness, understanding that, like, it was a different understanding of, like, the things that trigger you are what you have the most to learn from. And understanding, like, I understood at a different level that, this thing that really triggers me about this person is actually something about me. So I let loose in my journal before we did combo. I wrote about everything this person does that pisses me off. Everything. And then I reflected it all back at myself.
Shit.
Yeah. So basically everything where I said, he does this thing, I went, I do this thing, and I went, fuck.
Oh,
yep, I do
accurate.
all those things. Damn it. So, but that was my way of integrating, understanding what oneness was, is using that to then bring in my combo intention, and then I got exactly what I wanted from it. And two, with another point with integration is it doesn't have to be some epic, huge, life-changing, scary action that you take.
Micro progression.
Micro.
Yeah. For example, I was in a situation where two girls had come over to do DMT in our house. We had a guy come in who's really good with it, and we were out at dinner afterwards, and he called them and was like, "Hey, I forgot to say, like, this is a good time to like learn a new pattern or learn a new hobby or something like that. Your brains are really open to that." So we're sitting there at tacos, and I was like, looking at the two of them, like, "Okay, what is it? Like, what's the thing that you want to do?" And for one girl, it was messaging her estranged father that she'd never met back because he'd been messaging her on Facebook, and finally messaging him. She did it at the table. And then the other one, it was she wanted to, like, be more sassy. So she, I was like, "So what does that look like?" She said, "I want to bite your leg." So I checked in with my boundaries, and I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." I just let her bite my leg. And that was it. So, like, the two different things of, like, that's a big ass action that this girl almost didn't take. She had her phone out, looked at the message, and then went to put it down. I was like, "Hold on. You just had it right there.
Write that shit.
Come on, do it right now." And then, like, that, a big action paired against a really, really small one. Like, both of those moved the needle for these women.
Yeah, that's perfect. Like, and like, everyone's integration process is going to look different because everyone's lives are different, But the general theme that I wholeheartedly agree with what you guys are saying is, like, what I found is that I've definitely played the role of putting way too much pressure. Like, I'm going to make this monumental change, right? The ego's like, yeah, you are, right? And then that always just ends up like a train wreck, right? At least for me. And so as I've been, taking the pressure out myself and going, hey, I liked this thing about that experience. And you know what? Like, when I think about this in my life, like, that gives me that feeling, and I've known that for the last, like, however long, and I've just been like, I don't have enough time today. Well, now I realize how valuable it is, and I'm willing to put the time in, right? And, where attention goes, energy flows, right? So you start putting energy there, and, you do it day in, day out, it starts building up, and it can create something magical. And so I'm really glad we're at this point, in the episode where I want to ask you guys, what your one piece of wisdom that has been most monumental for you that you've received, like, in a one-word thing, right? Like, in a one-word lesson that you've received from any experience, a state of awareness, a feeling. What has been the thing? And then you can explain it after. One word, then you can explain it, right?
Breathe.
Hop into that. Tell us about it.
When I had the experience where I laid on Sean's chest, as much as I was on the verge of losing my shit, I kept breathing. All I did was breathe. Breathe. And because of that, and, like, knowing, okay, I know I'm safe. I know this is going to pass. It doesn't feel like it is. Like, a buddy even came up and was like, "Oh, Ben, you're safe. You're so safe." I was like, "Cool. You're saying that. I don't feel it." But I kept breathing the whole time. And
Yeah.
even we had actually a recent this retreat we did in Austin where I only had 1 gram. And then I smoked a spliff that sat me down. And I was trying to play the curiosity game with this guy. Lost the question mid sentence, and I was just like, I gotta sit down. And I sat down, and I was like couldn't really move. I tried to flop my arms, and they didn't really go. And all I did was breathe and keep my eyes open. That was breathe, keep my eyes open, breathe. And it was able to pass.
Yeah.
But it's the breath is the key point. If you can keep your breath low and slow through that whole experience, then you're going to be okay, and you're going to be able, and even if you can't, you're going to be okay. You're going to have a better time.
Yep.
If you can keep your breath low, slow, and smooth. No matter if it's a joyous moment or a challenging moment. Bring it back to the breath. That's your most useful tool in that situation.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I agree 100% with everything you just said. And the second one I would go with is surrender. And yeah, the more that I learned to surrender, which therefore meant that I was trusting in myself and in the experience, the game changed. New Year's Eve was the prime example of that. Yeah, throughout the entire night, there were things going on that I wanted to be a part of. And there's a story there about just wanting to, connect and be a part of the group. But I was feeling so loved and connected and supported by 2 lovely ladies. And I was like, I'm a fucking king right now.
Yeah.
And it just felt so good. And as much as I wanted to do DMT breathing, I was like, no, I'm actually good where I'm at. I'm just going to fucking surrender. Now I'm good. And then I got someone to roll me a spliff.
Yeah.
And I held onto the spliff for 3 hours, guys. 3 hours. Resisted smoking it because that's how fucking amazing I was feeling.
Yeah.
And that led me to my hot seat. Or then I went to support somebody and got blasted with energy, helped them move shit that I've never done before because I was I was in a pure state of surrender at that point of something's telling me to go over here, do this, do that. What's going on? Fuck it. You're doing this thing. And someone else is confirming that you're feeling this too. And then it led me to my hot seat experience with Ben. And I was making all sorts of weird noises and fucking tremoring. And at one point got blasted with energy from somewhere above me. And I could even just remember in those moments when there was a part of me that was like, what is happening? There was the other part of me was like, dude, just fucking accept it. Yeah, surrender, man. You're feeling this. Okay. Just fucking the energy would just surge through me.
Yeah.
And that was the entire night was just surrendering.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I finally understand what it means to surrender. So yeah, I mean, breathing is definitely the biggest thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Hands down. Surrender's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys, you heard it here first. Breathe, surrender, buy the ticket, take the ride, if you so choose. So this has been the first official episode of This One Time on Psychedelics. Ben, Sean, I got to thank you guys for coming on, for getting to do this in person. It's a rare thing these days to do things in person. Yeah, we've done a lot of them
I
recently.
heard there's a flu going around or something.
Yeah, something weird. I don't watch the news, so I don't know. But yeah, guys, so enjoy, and I will see you very soon on This One Time on Psychedelics. Peace.
Love you.
Bye.